Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why am I not getting hired? You know, I can remember a time in my life when I was applying for jobs like crazy and I was getting nothing but a whole bunch of rejection. And then in the times when I was getting actual interviews, I was still getting rejected, right? And I just could not understand, why am I not getting hired? Okay. And it took me a little while longer in my career to really understand the reasons why I wasn't getting hired in that moment. But what I want you to understand is that a lot of times I know it can be frustrating as a candidate because you're applying for jobs and maybe you're getting a whole bunch of rejection at that point in the process. Or maybe you're doing well at setting up interviews, but then when you go in for the interview, you're not getting the job at the end, right? And regardless of what the situation is, if you're continuously running into rejection, at some point it is very natural for you to think to yourself, well, why am I not getting hired, right? And the challenge is that from a company perspective, most companies are trained not to give feedback to candidates that they end up not hiring. And the reason why is because they're fearful of lawsuits. Okay. And, you know, that's great from the company perspective, but for you as a candidate, doesn't really do you much good. Okay. And it leaves you in somewhat of a frustrated type of state, because you can't really get better if you don't know why you're not getting hired. Okay. And so in this video, I'm going to help you gain some understanding around why you may not be getting hired. Okay. Let's talk about it. Welcome to another episode of Career Strategies. My name is Rodney Hughes, Mr. 100%. And if this is your first time to this channel is all about teaching you strategies for advancing your career. And so if that's a topic that's of great interest to you, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join the family. Okay? Again, so what we're talking about in this video is, why am I not getting hired? Let me say it again. Why am I not getting hired? Here's the deal. There's only 4 reasons. Okay. When I boiled it down, when I really thought about it, okay, from my experience in dealing with companies and the things that I've learned over the years, it really only boils down to 4 reasons why you're not getting hired. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Reason number 1, okay, obscurity. Okay. Obscurity is the state of being unknown, inconspicuous, or unimportant. Okay. And what you got to understand is that there are 3 levels of obscurity that you must overcome if you want to get a job. Okay. Level number 1, which is the absolute most important, okay, is they don't know you exist. Okay. So here's the deal. If you're applying for jobs and they never see your resume, that is a surefire way for you to never end up getting that job. Okay. And so if you're applying for jobs and you're never getting a response back, there could be a high probability that they never even saw your resume from the get-go. And so you have to do a better job of being more proactive at getting attention for your resume, just so you can at least get considered. Level number 2, they don't see your value. Okay, so maybe they see your resume, or maybe they even bring you in for an interview, but when somewhere in the process, they're not seeing the value that they need to see. Okay, and if they don't see that value, then they're probably not going to offer you the job. And then level number 3 that you have to overcome if you want to overcome obscurity is you're not staying on the top level of their mind. Something about either your resume or the way that you're interviewing or going through the interview process is not compelling enough for them to feel that emotional type of feeling that, man, this is the person that we need to move forward with. Okay. And so here's the thing. If you want to successfully get a job, right, if you want to get hired, you got to do a good enough job at each of those levels if you want to overcome obscurity. Okay. So again, those 3 levels are, they don't know you exist, right? You got to get on their radar. Level number 2, they don't know your value. You have to do a better job of showing them your value. Level number 3, right? You got to do a good job of staying on the top level of their mind by being compelling, by doing things that are compelling, that make them want to think about you and make them want to extend that offer to you. Okay. The second reason why you may not be getting hired It's because you have the wrong background. Okay, so as an executive recruiter, okay, you know, when I post jobs on like job boards, like major job boards like Indeed or some of the other ones out there, okay, it is amazing to me how many people apply to jobs that they have pretty much zero background in, or they have a very limited background in. Okay, here's the thing that you got to understand: you cannot be delusional when you're going through the interview process. If you don't have the skills that they're looking for in that job, you're wasting your time. Okay, so you know, like I said, there was a time in my life when I was applying to every job I could, right? And I was applying to jobs that I knew I didn't have the background for, right? And the thing was, it was, you know, I always believe, or I was always taught, throw mud against the wall and see what sticks. That is literally the worst way that you could go about getting hired, okay? And so many people do it. Like the overwhelming majority of people that come across my desk when I post a job are people that don't have the right background, right? And what you got to understand, I broke this down in other videos, but here goes some statistics that you need to know. The average job that's posted on a major job board will receive on average about 250 resumes. Out of that 250 resumes, only 4 to 6 of those candidates will actually be interviewed. Out of those 4 to 6 candidates that are interviewed, only one will get the job offer. Okay, now here's what I want you to understand: if you don't have the skills that they're looking for, you don't even make it to the 4 to 6 candidates that are interviewed. Okay, so that's why I'm telling you, you got to have the skills. And so what I like to tell people to do is don't be delusional. Use the 70% rule. Okay, and what is the 70% rule? The 70% rule is, I want you to look at the job description, and then I want you to look at your background, and I want you to think about your background, right? If you don't have at least 70% of the skills that they're looking for out of that particular job, don't apply for the role, okay? Because you're setting yourself up for failure before you even get started, okay? All right, reason number 3. Someone else is just flat out better than you. Okay, here's what you need to understand. You know, like, let's just say 50, 60 years ago, it was a much less competitive environment. Okay, 50, 60 years ago, you just had to pretty much compete with the people that were in your immediate vicinity, within your immediate city. Okay, but ever since the invention of the internet, okay, and ever since we started going online with things, you need to understand that now we are in a global job market for sure. Okay, you are competing with people all across the world. Don't think that just because you're in the same city as the job you're applying for, that the only people you're applying for are in your immediate city. I'm here to tell you, for so many jobs out there, you are competing with people all over the world, okay? And so what you got to understand is, because of that, because of how fierce competition is, you know, sometimes you can have a great background for the role, but there might be somebody who's just flat out better than you, okay? And if somebody's just flat out better than you, it just is what it is. And so what I like to tell people, that's why it's so important that you do a good job. Like, when you get in the mode of looking for a job and looking to get hired, I'd never recommend somebody putting all their eggs in one basket, right? I never recommend somebody to just go all in on one job, because the reality is there are so many different factors that go into someone being selected to get hired. Okay, and maybe you have all those things, okay, which is why you always want to apply for jobs, but you never want to just go all in on one thing and then just not look for other opportunities out there when you're in that mode. Because again, there's a lot of talent out here. I tell people all the time, it's super easy to find talented people nowadays, because I mean, just the internet allows for it, you know, LinkedIn allows for it, you know. There's so many different ways that you can go about getting talent as a company. So as a candidate, you got to understand, unless you are like a world-class expert in whatever it is that you do, and I'm not saying not just in your mind, I'm talking about like, unless you're that person, okay, like you're the true subject matter expert for what it is that you do, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be competing against other people. And sometimes the people that you're competing against, that you're truly competing against, sometimes these people are just flat out better than you. Okay, so in order to combat that, okay, you want to treat each opportunity like it's the only opportunity, but you don't want to just have one opportunity. Okay, you want, when you're interacting with that opportunity, you treat them like they're the only one, right? But once you start going down this path, you want to constantly be keeping your eyes open to see if there are other opportunities that you can start to generate, so that way, if you're engaged on an opportunity that you're interested in, and you know they end up having a candidate that's just flat out better than you, then you're not starting over at ground zero if that goes south, right? Then at least you'll have other opportunities that are at various stages that in the process. You see what I'm saying? And then lastly, and this is probably the biggest one, okay? You're creating the wrong perception for yourself, okay? Now this is huge, okay? This is definitely like probably the number one, okay, reason why why you're probably not getting hired, okay? If you have the background, so like a couple slides ago, I said you want to use the 70% rule, right? Where if you look at the job description, you look at your background, and you ask yourself, do you have at least 70% of what they're looking for, right? But when you do that, let's imagine for a second that you have 95% of what the job is looking for. I mean, that's like an ideal candidate, right? There's so many people who have the right background, but they do a horrible job of creating the right perception for themselves when they're going through the job interview process. See, you got to understand that when I actually just told a candidate this today. When a company is hiring someone, they're at an extreme disadvantage, okay? And what makes it an extreme disadvantage is that for the average company that's looking to hire someone, they really only have 3 data points that they can rely on to make the best possible decision. The first data point is, what do you say about you, right? So when you write your resume, how well is your resume written? Right? What are you saying about your background in your resume, right? So that's what you say about you, okay? Then if that goes well, then the next data point that they have to go off of is, well, what do you do? What do you do when you actually engage in the interview process? If they do a telephone interview, what do you do on that telephone interview? Do you come across as being the solution that I'm looking for as a company, right? When you come in for the interview and you interact with people, do you have a great attitude, right? They're paying attention to the things that you're doing as you're going through the job interview process, right? And then lastly, the last data point they have to go off of is what other people have to say about you, right? So, if they ask for references, what are other people going to say about you? If they do a background check on you, right? What's going to come up in your background check, right? What are other people going to find in your background, right? But if you think about it, that is literally, okay, all they have to go off of when it comes to making a hiring decision, okay? And because they're at such a disadvantage, right, when it comes to the things that they can, the information that they can go off of to make a decision regarding a candidate, oftentimes what happens is these companies end up taking on a posture of looking for a reason to kick a candidate out of consideration, right? Like they're looking, like I tell people all the time, this is one of the most unforgiving processes that you'll ever go through, okay? Because if they see only even one thing that is out of perspective for them, or is a not so good sign for them, a lot of times they'll just do away with the candidate. So I see great candidates get passed up on opportunities all the time for seemingly petty reasons, okay? Seemingly insignificant reasons, okay? But again, the reason why they're doing that is because they're at a huge disadvantage, right? So what they're doing is, so what you have to do as a candidate is you have to be able to control your perception as you're going through the job interview process, okay? And that means that you have to scale up when it comes to your job interview skills. Okay. And unfortunately, most people never have received any type of formalized training when it comes to job interview skills. Okay. Most people, at best have learned a few things about going through the job interview by trial and error, or by having somebody like a friend or a family member give them just a couple of little pointers about how to go into an interview. But most people have never been trained like by somebody who does this on a regular basis, how to be effective at every phase of the job interview process. But what you got to understand is that it is absolutely essential that you become better at that, or else you'll get passed over for opportunities left and right. Okay. Again, I see it every single day. And it's unfortunate when you have somebody who has a phenomenal background who ends up getting passed over, simply not because they didn't have the background that the company was looking for, but because that person didn't have the skills that they needed to have as it related to the interview process. And see, the interview skills that you have to develop are all about controlling your perception as you're going through the job interview process. Okay. So you have to skill up. Okay. It is absolutely essential. I tell people all the time, in the ideal world, okay, the person with the best skills will always get the job. But in the real world, it's the person who creates the best perception that will typically get the job. And those two things aren't always mutually, aren't always the same thing. Okay. And so again, you gotta skill up. This is a big one. Okay. You gotta skill up. You got to improve your skills of controlling your perception as you're going through the job interview process. All right. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you do want to skill up, if you do want to improve your job interview skills, okay, I want to give you free access to a virtual training platform that I created called Interview Prep University. It is designed to teach you from point A all the way to point Z how to exponentially improve your job interview skills at every single phase of the job interview process. If you'd like to get free access to this, go to www.interviewprepuniversity.com. Again, that's www.interviewprepuniversity.com. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like this video, comment on this video. Tell me what was the most helpful part of this video for you. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, join the family. I'm going to be dropping content on a daily basis that's going to be able to help you advance your career. All right. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.